We now have all the information available in our PHP code to send our email. PHP has a mail function we could use, but it doesn't work with every server configuration. Remember how we talked about the need to install a local PHP development environment to make our computer process PHP code? Well, it takes additional software to make it send email. I recommend using a third-party library and a separate email server, but we're going to need to learn a little bit more about PHP before we can get that set up. Let's do that a little later on in the project. For now, let's assume we have already sent the email and talk about what to do next.
Let's write a comment in the code here as a placeholder. You can write a comment in PHP by typing 2 slashes. Anything after these 2 slashes on this line will be treated by PHP as a comment and ignored. We might want to say something like, to do, send email. This will be a placeholder reminding us to come back here and send the email later on. After the email gets sent, we want to display a thank you page to the site visitor who completed the form. It might seem natural to include our header files here and then echo out a thank you message. That does work, but there's one problem with that approach. To explain the problem in full, we'll have to go ahead and build it out this way. Just like our regular pages, let's set our variables for section and page title here. Page title equals thank you. Section equals null. Then let's add the HTML structure for the page, just like we've done on the other pages. Then we'll add the content of the page with a heading and a paragraph. Then we'll end the file by including the footer. Let's include the header up here. And now we're ready to preview this page. Let's complete our suggestion form. The browser navigates to the process.php, and we see our thank you message here. Like I said, this approach mostly works. However, if this page is refreshed, the server might resend another email. Some browsers will pop up a warning like this one, asking if the user wants to resubmit the form. The form will be resubmitted and our email will be sent again.
Remember when we submitted the form and requested process.php originally? We sent our post variables along with that request. The browser now wants to know if we want to submit the form again. If we say yes here, the PHP file will load and send us another email. If we say no, then we'll get an ugly error page. Neither of these are ideal. I suppose it's not too bad if we get a duplicate email, but in other cases, this could be a really big deal. Imagine a form that processes a credit card. No visitor to our site would want to click the back button and then have their credit card charged again. The best way to solve this problem is to have PHP first send the email and then redirect the visitor to a different thank you page. If we do it properly, the post submission will not be recorded as part of the browser's history.
Let's create another file for the thank you page. We'll call it thanks.php. We can move all the code we wrote to display the thank you page over to this new file. Back in the process.php file, we can do a redirect after we send the email. We use redirection on our details page when we didn't have a valid item ID. Let's use the header command again and set the location to look instead for a different page, the new page we just created, thanks.php. Remember, we need to make sure that we don't send anything to the browser before the redirect. Even a blank line at the beginning of the file is a header response and will cause the redirect to fail. Our process.php file will now gather all the variables from the form, eventually send the email, and then redirect to the thank you page. Let's take a look at this in action. Save our files and go back to our browser. Let's go back and send the form again. Now when I submit the form, I end up in the browser at thanks, thanks.php. If I refresh the page, it simply refreshes thanks.php and ignores process.php entirely. And the back button goes directly back to suggest.php. And forward again to thank you. No extra form submissions, and no extra emails.